worship in France are the question of Lucifer, a record of things seen and heard in the secret societies according to the evidence of initiates. Chapter 14, The Radix of Modern Diabolism. We have finished with the witnesses of Lucifer. That's got to become the name. Instead of Jehovah's Witnesses, Lucifer's Witnesses, that's got to become a statement. Of course, in the Christian sense, you could probably say Christ is Lucifer and all that, but I already did that video. We have finished with the witnesses of Lucifer, and I think that the searchlight of a drastic criticism has left them in considerable disarray. We approach the limit of the present inquiry, but before summing up and presenting such a general statement, our conclusion, as may be warranted by the facts, there is one point left over hereunto, and designed for final consideration, because it appeals more exclusively to professed transcendentalists, which it will be necessary to treat briefly. I have already indicated that the sporadic revivals of black magic have occasionally been heard of by mystics here in England, and from time to time we have also heard vaguely of obscure assemblies of Luciferians. Quite recently, an interview with Papus, the French occultist, published in Light, mentions a society which was devoted to the cultus of Lucifer, Star of the Morning, quite distinct from Masonry, quite unimportant, and since very naturally dead. Now a large portion of mystics here in England are high-grade Masons, and if the Society of the Palladium had extended to anything remotely approaching the proportions alleged, they could not have failed to know of it. I will go further and affirm that our non-Masonic transcendental associations have abundant opportunities to become acquainted with institutions similar to their own, and it is preposterous to suppose that there could be several Palladian triangles working their degrees in this country without our being aware of the fact. But we have not been aware of it, and our only informations concerning Palladism have come to us from France. We do not accept these informations. We know that the persons here in England who are alleged by French false witnesses to be connected with the Palladium are not so connected, and now learning of it for the first time, the statements concerning Mr. John Yarker are categorically untrue. The gross calumny published by the converted Diana Vaughan about Dr. Wynne Westcott, who happens to be a high-grade Mason, she will never dare to come forth from her retreat and affirm within the jurisdiction of these islands, because she knows well that a British jury would make a large demand upon her reputed American dollars. Let us, however, put aside for the moment the mendicities, the mendicities, and forgeries, which complicate the question of Lucifer, and let us approach Palladism from an altogether different side. I believe that I may speak with a certain accent of authority upon any question which connects with the French magus Eliphas Levi. I am an old student of his works, and the aspects of occult science and magical history which arise out of them. In the year 1886, 10 years before this was published, I published a digest of his writings, which have been the only attempt to present them to English readers until the present year, when I have undertaken a translation in extensa of the Dogme et Rituel de la Haute Magie, which is actually in the hands of the printer. That's why I keep confusing Eliphas Levi and A.E.Waite, because A.E.Waite made Eliphas Levi accessible. Now, how much of that is like Lon Miley Duquette and other authors making Aleister Crowley accessible to people? I'll leave that up to you to judge. Now it has not been alleged in so many words that the Radix of modern Diabolism and the Masonic cultus of Lucifer is to be found in Alephus Levi, but that is the substance of the charge. Most or all of the witnesses agree in representing him as an atrocious Satanist, an invoker of Lucifer, a celebrator of black masses, and an adept in the practical blasphemies of Eucharistic sacrilege. All of them father either upon the Palladium or upon Pike a variety of documents containing gross thefts from Levi. Some of them direct and upon their own responsibility cite passages from his works, always with conspicuous bad faith. Finally, they agree in connecting him with the foundation of the new and reformed Palladium through his alleged disciple, Phileas Walder, and one of them goes so far as to say that Palladism was a further development or restoration of a satanic society directed by Alephus Levi and operating his theurgic system, which he in turn, if I rightly understand the mixed hypothesis of M. de la Rive, may have derived from the Palladic Rite of 1730. If we accept the moment this origin of the Reformed order, it will follow that the occult doctrines of Alephus Levi have been seriously misunderstood or grossly defamed by the witnesses. The diabolical or Luciferian connection of Palladism does not wear the complexion of which has been ascribed to it. It is represented as outwardly Masonic and actually theurgic. It is Manichaean in doctrine. It regards Lucifer as an internal principle coexistent, but in a hostile sense, with Adonai. It holds that the beneficent deity is Lucifer, while Adonai is malevolent. Honestly, in Christian doctrine, Adonai is the Father and Lucifer is the Son, right? Certain sections of Palladists, however, recognize that Lucifer is identical with Satan, which is the evil principle. This section adores the evil principle as such. Now in each and all these matters, the Palladian system conflicts with that of Levi. Now, how are we going to define Palladism? People can say Middle Eastern or whatever. Okay, so what happens here? Suar, the plural of Surah, and rank. So as you learn, you acquire ranks. Palladism, you require ranks. Continual moving, continual accomplishment of learning and doing and experiencing. That's a proper definition of Luciferianism. To give a colorable aspect to their hypothesis, the witnesses affirm that Levi was a high-grade Mason. He was nothing of that kind. He affirms most distinctly in his History of Magic that for any knowledge which he possessed about the mysteries of the fraternity, he owed his initiation only to God and to his individual studies. Secondly, the practice of ceremonial magic, which is what the witnesses understand by theurgy, is a practice condemned by Levi, except an isolated experiment to fortify intellectual conviction as to the truth of magical theorems. He attempted it for this purpose in the spring of the year 1854, and having satisfied himself to the fact, he did not renew it. Thirdly, the philosophy of Alephus Levi is in direct contrast to the Manichaean doctrine. It cannot be exemplified by dualism, but must be explained by its opposite, namely triplicity and unity. He shows that the unintelligent disciples of Zoroaster have divided the duad without referring to it unity, thus separating the pillars of the temple and seeking to have God. Dogma, page 129, second edition. Is that a Manichaean doctrine? Again, if you conceive that the absolute as two, and you must immediately conceive it as three to recover the unity principle. Once more, divinity, in its essence, has two fundamental conditions of being: necessity and liberality. Necessity and liberty. Same source, page 127. And yet again, if God were one only, he would never be creator nor father. Well, he wouldn't be father. He'd be beyond father and mother and that sort of thing, if you're going to think of that. If he were two, there would be antagonism or division in the infinitive. And this would be severance or death for every possible existence. Zervanism, you have Zervan, god of time, and Ahura Mazda loses some attributes in the typical understanding, and Ahriman is, like the evil god under, so there's a... And anyways, that's a related mythology that one might look into for that sort of thing. And this would be severance or death for every possible existence. He is, therefore, three, for creation by himself, and in his image of the infinite multitude of beings and numbers. Thus he is really one in himself, and triple in our conception, by which we hold him triple in himself, and one in our intelligence and in our love. Negative, positive, and other, but again, you don't have to personify and break up into different personages and that sort of thing to understand those concepts, but perhaps a Christian sees that necessary. This is a mystery for the faithful and a logical necessity for the initiate of the absolute and true sciences. Same source, page 138. And the witnesses of Lucifer have the effrontery to represent Levi as a dualist. I will not discredit their understanding by supposing that they could misread so plain a principle, nor dissemble my full conviction that they have acted with intentional bad faith. Fourthly, Eliphas Levi regard Lucifer as a conception of transcendental mythology, and the devil as an impossible fiction, are an inverted and blasphemous conception of God, divinity Ouroboros. He describes the Ophite heresy, which offered adoration to the serpent, and the Cainite heresy, which justified the revolt of the first angel, and the murder as errors fit for classification with monstrous idols of the anarchy symbolism of India. Ritual, page 13 and 14. Is that diabolism? Is that the cult of Lucifer? True, Levi did not believe in the personal existence of a father of lies, and if it be Satanism not to do so, let us be content to diabolize with Levi, while the false witnesses illustrate the methods of their father. Now, certainly, when we look at the Christian mythos, we're going to see such power attributed to Satan that God having to kill his only son and some other passages like that, that kind of would convert people towards worshiping Satan and Lucifer as a second entity. As, as the true God and his true emissary, rather than the father and son of the Christian idea. But Luciferianism, one of the things that we could say is, like the Theurgist, we realized that we got to address different sides of life, and we address what we can have our accomplishment, what we personally find to be best, and that is, and yes, when people are calling up angels, trying to get them to obey them instead of God, that's one category of things. Calling up demons, whether you call it Satanism or not, let's be honest about, they're worshiping demons, or entities that would be called demons. That's, it is what it is. But is it their stereotype of Satanism? No, it's not. Because, the Christian God's all good, and anything contrary to the Christian faith, or anything that's not put in the context of the Christian faith. See, that's what these authors are trying to put across here. And they don't seem to understand a lot of other faiths. They don't understand Islam. They don't understand Sufism, whether or not it's Islam. They don't understand the difference between, Protestants. Protestants must be companions of the devil. It's like, okay. It is unnecessary to multiply quotations, but here is one more. The author of this book is a Christian like unto you. His faith is that of a Catholic, deeply and strongly convinced. Therefore his mission is not to deny dogmas, to combat impiety under one of its most dangerous forms, that of erroneous belief and superstition. Away with the idol which hides our Savior, down with the tyrants of falsehood, down with the black god of the Manichaeans, down with the Ahriman of the old idolaters. Live God alone and his incarnate Logos, Jesus the Christ, Savior of the world, who beheld Satan precipitated from heaven. Goem de la docture batil, abas signor margiata, fia diabos and leotaxel. Okay, so I've talked about Abrasax, Abraxas, Barbaloo, Abramentu, and the Aphin logos, the Aphis logos. You can think of it as a character that comes again and again when to, sort of the Nabi figure. So we don't have to think of it, diabolically. But Luciferian way of thinking of that sort of Gnosticism. But we don't have to think of these Abraxas, Barbalo, Abramentu. We can think, okay, the deity of space, like of the void, of energy, of action. I occupy space. I have energy. I have actions. And, if you're going to throw a fourth into it, there's a way in which these things are known to people. So the Aphin logos is really a prophet figure. But anyways, think of these things how you will. Seeing then that Eliphas Levi has been calumniously represented, and that he was not a Satanist, he could not have founded a satanic society, nor could a Manichaean order have been developed out of his doctrines. Hence, if a Palladian society do exist at Charleston, it either owes nothing to Levi or its cultist has been falsely described. In other words, from whatever point we approach the witnesses of Lucifer, they are subjected to a rough unveiling. In the words of the motto of my title, first in this plot was Lucifer, Videlicet, the father of lies. And the conclusion is the last part we're going to share here. But, so what is the purpose of my playlist, the conspiracy playlist? Yeah, there are real conspiracies, and I might talk about some real conspiracies that are going on, regardless of what control they would have. But just like the idea of Satan, these are beings, they don't just sneak in and force people to do things. We have a choice. Our abilities, whatever conspiracy, real or just a conspiracy to put blame, these are things that we have responsibility. Self-responsibility, self-mastery, self-realization, self-actualization. That is what Luciferianism is about in its base definition. Lux et nox et lux.